Today's going to be a very special podcast on Alex Guerra Podcasting as I welcome back someone who you've met before like 2 times already, Mr. David Marion. He's a recovery coach. He has a story of addiction recovery himself. And David, I understand, you called me a couple of days ago with someone else you'd like to shine a spotlight on. So tell us about your guest and mutual connection now, Tammie Haas. And thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
So, interesting story. Obviously, been in recovery for a while, and I travel the country, and I hear wonderful, incredible stories and overcoming adversity. And met a woman a couple of months ago, and her story is one which I might have heard before, but to hear this in such a thoughtful, understanding way, to see the empathetic and sympathetic ways that she has overcome adversity and become the strong woman she is today. It's simply miraculous is what it is, Alex.
And it's a very, very, very sad beginning, turning into a very bright, future now. But Tammie, your sad beginning does start in Germany, and unfortunately you had your dad who raped you and your sister for 11 years. But now here you are willing to talk about it. So my first question would be is, how long did you keep silent about the abuse, the rapes that were going on, and how did you find your voice?
Well, I was 14 when I decided I just had enough and I needed to get away. So my sister and I, we both left the home together. And in the middle of the night, we planned it for a while, and we ran away in the middle of the night, and we went to a friend of ours' home, a mutual friend. And the next morning, we both together went to the police department and told them the whole story. We did like a video statement. Then they arrested my dad, and my mom got to us and wanted us to recant the statement. And my sister did, but I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I've had enough. I'm just done. So I stood my ground. I stayed with my statement. We went to court, and it was basically me against my entire family because now they had all turned on me because I was tearing the family apart. But I stood my ground. I said, I'm not going back into that house and subjecting myself to more of the abuse. So I was too young to be on my own, so I became a ward of the state, which is basically a foster child. My attorney at the time became my foster parent. So in a sense that I was lucky, otherwise I would have been put into a foster home and basically just another, I don't even know what it was saying. Another statistic of a foster child. Yeah. So I stayed with my foster parents until I was 18, and then I was on my own. And I graduated high school, went to college, had my first child in college, but I was determined the whole time. I mean, it was hard. From day one, it was hard. But I was determined to make something of my life. I mean, it was awful from the beginning. We were poor, and I just wanted to make a better life for myself.
I want to ask you about how common it is that a father would do this to their daughter, because obviously it's not a story you hear every day, but at the same time, I imagine that it is going on. We just don't really hear about it as much as maybe we should be reporting on these kind of, rapes and abuses and all of that.
Unfortunately, it happens way more than we hear about. I mean, probably at least 3 out of 10 girls are raped by someone that they know, and not necessarily a father, but a brother, an uncle, someone that they know that they are related to.
There's this movement going on, by the way, that children should be able to give consent for hugs. As ridiculous as that may sound on the surface, someone like you might say, you know what, maybe that is the route we have to go down so we can prevent these things from happening, these sexual assaults, these rapes from happening.
Yeah, is that, I guess you asked it in the form of a question, right? What is her thought on this?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what do you think?
Consent for a hug?
Well, honestly, I've never even heard of that. I think it's a little. I mean, I don't know. I think that's kind of ridiculous.
I do too, but I want to get your thought on that. If your story could be an example of why that might be talked about more so than before. Recovery. Obviously, you're with David. He's a recovery coach. So where did you go into the addiction problems? Like, where did that start, and how were you able to come out of that?
Well, honestly, I have never been addicted to drugs or alcohol. In my family, I was around drugs a lot, and I mean, I have never taken drugs. I do drink socially, but I think my recovery is more of just overcoming everything that my family put me through as a child.
As you've grown up and you've gotten through all of this and overcome, have any of your family members ever apologized for turning against you?
No. It's pretty much a taboo subject in my family. We do not talk about it. It's very well known. It's public knowledge through my entire family. But we don't talk about it. We don't discuss it. They've never apologized to me. My dad has never apologized to me. He basically has made excuses for it. But I didn't want to hear excuses. I mean, I forgive him because it's a huge burden to carry around. I forgive him. I forgive my mom. But I never wanted. I mean, yes, I wanted him to say he was sorry for what he did, but he didn't. All he basically gave me was excuses, which I did not want to hear.
So it sounds like, are you still in touch with them? If so, what took the strength to get back in touch with your family after being banished?
We do. We are in touch with each other. I speak to them on a regular basis. I do go see them. They live in another state. And we have it's a semi-normal relationship. When we were growing up, my parents they didn't ever hug us. There was no love in our family. So now when I leave and when I see them and I leave them, they will hug me and they tell me that they love me. But honestly, it just, it feels like too little too late. I mean, I appreciate it to a degree, and I do tell them that I love them, which I sincerely mean. They're my only family that I have ever known. But it took several years before we even spoke to each other after my dad was arrested, and we went to court, and I was taken away from them. I was taken away when I was 14, and I was probably 22 before I spoke to them again.
Okay, so in those 8 years, how did you work on yourself?
Well, honestly, that time was it was a struggle. I was in college. I was in another state. I didn't know anybody. I just completely absorbed myself in school. That's all I focused on, raising a child and school. And then I came back to Florida and got a job. I mean, I lived wherever I could live, and just with people, and I just worked as hard as I could to try to make a life for myself and my daughter.
And how is she doing today?
She is amazing. She is a teacher. She graduated college. She's married. She has 2 boys. She's amazing. She's a wonderful, wonderful person.
What were your relationships like? Because David sent me this whole background on you, and I want to hear from you. You had 5 kids with different men, but how were your relationships with men following all of that trauma from age 3 to 14?
Well, looking back now on them, they were toxic relationships, every one of them. But at the time that I was in them, that's all I knew was abuse. So if a man was abusive to me or hit me or whatever, it didn't. I mean, yes, I didn't like it, but it just seemed so normal to me. Now, because I went through all of that and I've recovered, and I look back on it and I see how just detrimental it was to me and to anybody to live in a relationship like that. but it happens so much. I mean, there's so many, and I don't know why, but there's so many men that are like that to women.
And I would ask, did you have PTSD with them? Do you have PTSD when you do hug your dad? Is there that still in your mindset as well?
I honestly feel like I have completely recovered from it. I 100% forgive my dad. I know people don't understand that and they think it's absurd, but to carry around hate or anger or bitterness, it's a huge burden to carry around. And God created us to forgive, and that's what I do. I forgive him. I don't understand it, but I forgive him.
David, well, something I would go ahead, Alex.
I was going to say, obviously you weren't there during these years, but now that you know more of her story, like recovery does happen in this way as well. So what progress have you seen her make since meeting Tammie? Like, what progress has she made, even, being alongside you and seeing you in action as a recovery coach?
I think our interaction together has created more of a mindfulness of her. To be able to really broach topics like this and dig in. I will say something, though, that we had talked about when she brought her 3 sons to her dad's home, and I asked her, she had went out to a Target or a Walmart and left them in the house. And I said, did that thought ever occur to you that you're leaving your kids? And she said, yes, I had that fleeting thought for a moment. The same thought that I had when my mom left the house years ago. So I think that, do we ever completely forget about this? Absolutely not. Forgiveness, that's a different story. Do we ever completely 100% forgive? No. Listen, we try to do the best we can. But in her situation, there's always that impact on future relationships and things like that is going to really resonate with her. The work that she's doing today is unbelievable, willing to talk about this stuff, willing to help others, volunteer work. I'll tell you, she can tell you where she volunteers.
I work with the state foster kids. I'm basically a voice for them in court. Kids that have been, abused or raped or, their parents prostitute them out or on drugs or there's so many different scenarios. But I basically am a voice for them in court because when I was in court, I didn't have anybody to be that voice for me. It was just me against my family. And so I know what they feel like. And I stand up for them in court and basically am a voice for them. Which
advocacy is so powerful.
Absolutely.
To have an advocate. I'm a recovery advocate as well, and I've lived in recovery on both sides of it. She is in a recovery for foster kids because she has been on both sides of it. And I think that's really where the power comes in. When you're working with someone and you understand the dynamics of what they have gone through, it really helps them build the trust with another person to want to change.
This is so powerful. Tammie, I've got tons of follow-up, but I want to ask you about the foster care because you're working to advocate for foster kids. Those 4 years you were there, was that a trying time as well?
It was. I mean, it wasn't hard. I had good foster parents. They were loving. They were kind. Their daughter did not like me being in the home. We were both the same age, and we were teenagers. And to just, overnight bring another teenager into your house, it's hard. And I don't fault her for feeling the way she did. But it was a little hard on me. She didn't like me being there. She made it a little hard on me. That's why when I turned 18, I did leave. But I forget. I kind of lost my train of thought. But
okay.
It wasn't super hard. I was very fortunate to have good foster parents.
Well, your story is also of breaking away from the toxicity, from the sexual abuse environment. So was it still hard to grow the courage and to actually say, I'm leaving to start on my own? Was that tough a decision to make, or were you ready? Like, did you do it when you knew you were ready?
Oh, it was hard. It was very hard. I didn't know, I just went to live with in my aunt. She lived in pretty much the same town as I did. So I went to live with her. And but then I was in a terrible accident, and I had to leave her home because I had to have a live-in nurse. So I came to live with my grandmother then, who was probably my closest family member that I had through all of it. She was my rock. If anything I needed, I always went to my grandma and my grandpa. So when I needed a live-in nurse, she said she would do it, and I went to live with her.
What was the accident?
I used to do marathon biking, and I was hit by a truck when I was riding, and it drug me down the street. Basically, almost killed me. But I recovered, and I was in high school at the time, and the principal happened to be a good friend of mine, and she told me that if I could pass all of my final exams, then she would pass me to my senior year of high school, which I did.
And so tell me, then what was high school like? I mean, obviously, if all this stuff, well, I just want to know your journey, because it's great that you were able to break out of this and do the high school, do college. So socializing with everything you've been through, was that difficult, socializing, or were you always friendly no matter what?
No, I was very withdrawn in high school. I didn't have many friends. I didn't discuss this with anybody. I did not talk about it with anybody. I was very academic-wise. I worked hard to have, maintain good grades, but I was not very social in high school. I didn't go to parties. I had friends, but very few. Completely opposite of how I am today, but and not that I thought people knew, but you just don't know. I mean, you grow up in that lifestyle and you know it's wrong, but breaking away from it is extremely hard. But you don't want people to know. It's and it's not something that I was doing, but it's a shameful thing to tell people, embarrassing, and people aren't going to understand, or whatever. I mean, a million things go through your mind as a child, but I didn't have many friends in school.
Tammie, I know you were born in Germany, and that's a very. How did you get to? When did you come over here? And what was life in Germany like as a kid? And also, do you have family there still?
I left there when I was 3. I don't know anybody there. I don't know my family. I don't know my dad. I don't know them. So I was adopted from there and brought to the States when I was 3. We lived in Ohio. Then when I was 6, we moved to Florida with my adopted parents.
Wow, that's quite a journey for a youngster. You said that God creates us all and has a purpose, and I could just tell faith has gotten you through all of this, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And we didn't grow up knowing about God, learning about God. That was something that I basically just reached out on my own and did. But I know we are created to forgive. God forgives us, and that is instilled in us. And it's so huge. I mean, that to just be able to forgive people, I mean, it relieves you. Like it's too big of a burden to carry around, to hate people and to be bitter and angry. You just have to forgive them.
I hope I don't mind me asking this, but in New York, the last couple of weeks, we've actually seen a son stab a dad over something, or we've seen, like a mom be shot by her son because of this GameStop stocks. In general, did you ever have those? Did you ever feel like a violent feeling toward your father, or were you making peace with yourself with it as you went on? Like, were there any violent thoughts at all that came in, or no?
Honestly, I don't think so. I think I've just been very blessed that God created me to be so strong. I'm sure I wished ill on him at some point, that he would just go away or, whatever. But did I ever think about killing him? I don't really think I did. I honestly just wanted to be away from him.
You know, and I think also, excuse me, her sister was involved too. And Tammie had mentioned there were nights that she hoped her sister got called into the dad's room, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that.
I did. I mean, and that's sad. But it was either me or her. So I did. I would wish that it would be her. You know, please God, just let it be her. I mean, and that's awful that I wish that upon her, but I didn't want it to be me.
That's a very natural fear, and it sounds like Russian roulette a little bit, like who is he going to pick today, which is a horrible way to live, and I can't imagine the emotional torture that was in addition to the physical.
It was so, oh my gosh. It was, I feel bad for my sister because I remember, one time in particular really stands out in my mind that it was her and not me. And I was outside and there were friends from our neighborhood over in our yard or something. And I could hear her screaming, and it broke my heart because I know what she's going through. But at the same time, I was so unbelievably happy that it wasn't me.
Now, how are you with your sister? Are you close at all or not particularly?
I am not. I actually have two sisters, and my one sister, my younger sister, I'm extremely close, very, very close with. My older sister, who went through all of this with me, I'm not close with her at all. She did some things to me that are completely unrelated, but we don't have a close relationship.
And I mean, I would say to sadden you, but it seems like you are at peace with however connected you are. David, it's kind of interesting we're having this conversation because when someone hears recovery, they do think about addiction, and they do think about, like, you know, alcohol and drugs, but maybe sexual, I guess, well, not I guess, but I'm sure sexual assault is also a recovery project, isn't it?
Absolutely. You know, there's people often say, well, I'm not addicted to anything, so how can I be in recovery? And I say we all have some type of pains, trauma, maybe abuse, PTSD, that we try to recover from. And it's overcoming that process of cleansing and really becoming at a place we've never been before, digging deep down in the roots of this stuff, pulling it out, and really cleansing it till we get into and stay into a recovery from our past.
And Tammie is talking about this with such a brighter, I could tell she's actually feeling brighter about her situation right now, which is good because I can't imagine the thoughts that come up when you do have to explain this. But maybe because you do a lot of speaking and podcasting and everything like that, it's sort of just cathartic to talk about this and get it out of your system. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. I used to not be able to talk about it. It was very, very hard. I would get emotional and just break down. I had reoccurring nightmares, and I mean, it was hard. And I mean, I'm 50 now, and I can honestly say I am completely 100% good about talking about it or talking with somebody about it. You know, talking with other girls about it and helping them through similar situations. And that's kind of my goal, is to just reach out to people that are going through the same situation and just let them know that they're not alone. There's hundreds, millions of girls that go through this. And a lot of them don't stand up or don't have support systems and aren't able to talk about it. So to be able to reach, even if just one person could hear this and, no, I'm not alone. There's somebody else that's going through this. It's just, I'm so 100% good about talking about it and talking through it.
Talking with Tammie Haas and David Marion, David at therecoverycoach.com, I believe. Is that the right website?
TheLifeRecoveryCoach.com.
There you go, TheLifeRecoveryCoach.com. Tammie, as you're talking about this, David, came to me and said, I've got this very successful woman. She's overcome all of this. So I want to ask you, when you're told you are successful, knowing everything you've been through, how does that make you feel?
I feel great. It does. I mean, it resonates with me. It makes me, I feel wonderful. I mean, to know where I came from and everything that I went through and overcame it. And I've made a good life for myself. I'm happy. My kids are happy. They're healthy. I mean, I live for my kids. They are my world. They are my rock. But I work hard to give them everything that they have and to just to make sure that they don't ever have to endure any kind of pain like this in their lives.
So the question that I have is, knowing that you do this advocacy work, do your children know about your past history?
They don't know.
Have you ever thought about someday, would you ever tell them that?
I don't know that I would want them to look at me like that. And I don't know that my dad, their grandpa, they think he is just amazing. They have fun with him. They do outdoor things. And I don't want that stigma to be on him. I mean, I went through it and I'm good with it, but I don't want them to, I don't know that I want them to. I'm not saying later in life that I wouldn't, but they're still young and
yeah,
I don't know.
I'm sure there's a lot of schools of thought on that, on how people would talk about it and do they need to talk about it with their kids? Right, Alex?
Absolutely. And it's interesting to bring this up because it's like, yeah, he is a grandfather now, and that's a different role. And I think, as you say, you don't want to see him in that, don't want them to see that in their light because, A, you don't want to cut off that connection with him, which is also a good thing for the kids as well.
I will say this, my daughters do know to a degree because I didn't want them to go through the same thing that I went through. So I did, to some degree, let them know.
Talk about the age difference with your kids.
My oldest daughter is 30. I had her right out of high school into college. And my youngest son, who is my guardian angel, he is 7.
Why is he a guardian angel? What happened to you guys last year?
We were hit by a drunk driver last year, and it almost killed my son, my baby. And we don't know. I don't know what hit him. It crushed his skull in. But whatever hit him flew right past me, and I'm not happy that it hit him, but had it hit me, it probably would have killed me.
Wow, this is quite a journey that you're on. How is he doing today? Like, is his speaking impaired? What is what was the aftermath of that?
He oh my gosh. He had his skull kind of almost in a sense exploded inside of his head, and he had bones stuck in the back of his eye. They removed all of the bones, and he has no residual effects from the bone that was stuck in his eye. He didn't lose any sight. He does have a huge scar across his face from, again, like I said, we don't know what hit him, but it crushed his skull in, and they put plates in his head. And he does have a spot on his brain and his frontal lobe that is dead. He has a little bit of difficulty in school that we are working through. We have therapists and stuff that are working with him. He doesn't recall words. He will learn them one day, but he doesn't retain it. He loses it. So, but he's doing good. I mean, he's vibrant and he's happy and he's very active 7-year-old boy. But he knows that he struggles, and he knows that a drunk driver hit us, and he knows that he's Superman. He calls himself Superman because he did, live through it. But he's good, and for all in all, everything that he's gone through, he's good. He is really good. Thanks
be to God there. In college, you have your daughter, and did that throw everything off course, pun intended a bit, because of the course load you get in college? So, but seriously, did that throw it off? Or?
It was hard. I mean, it was extremely difficult to have a child and go to school and to be by yourself. But I did it, and I did it with her, and we came through it, and we're good.
Mental fortitude is very strong with you. You have a very strong mentality about all this, but some may not. So I like to bring on people who might have a message for those not feeling as mentally strong, as having that fortitude, as those who are willing to talk about it. What's your message to them today?
Oh, gosh. I think that the biggest part is to have, somebody in your corner, somebody that you can talk to, somebody that you can confide in. There's hope out there for everybody, and they just have to find that niche. And, if I could help some of them, I would love it. Whatever I can do, just to help them find a path that is good for them, be it school or, whatever it is, a career. They just have to find something that, in life that will make them happy.
And I agree with that. So, Simon, along with the kids, what else makes you happy then? Like, when we're talking to you today, what makes you happy right now as we're talking? And I could tell in certain parts of the conversation, there's a smile on your face as you talk about the aftermath of all this. So what makes you happy at the end of the day?
Guys, I don't even know. I am just a happy person. I smile all the time. I have good friends. I have an amazing life right now, good family. My work is great. Everything in my life combined together just makes me an extremely happy person. And to know that I have overcome all of this and I'm strong, I'm stronger. Every day I'm stronger, and it's just good. Everything's good.
I would say the one thing that I've seen, she has a tremendous amount of gratitude. And I think that truly exudes in all areas of her life. Watching her as a mom, watching her in her profession, watching her in the community, watching her with her volunteer opportunities. She always goes in with that same attitude and the same happiness towards people. And I often say when we begin to make our lives about other people, the better we get to feel. Many people, when they go through something like this, Alex, they internalize this, and they often say, what is wrong with me? Why did this happen to me? Is there something wrong? And they live in that shame-based persona for so long. We often say there's a difference between guilt and shame, right? Guilt is I made a mistake, but I could change. Shame is I am a mistake. I'm hopeless. Many of us live in that hopeless persona, and we don't know how to move through it. And I think once we overcome that and realize that I am not a mistake, right? We might have been a victim in a situation, but believe me, how do we overcome this? It's by talking about it.
Right.
Shame, we feed into shame through isolation and loneliness and not talking about this stuff. It really adds fire to it. And I think by able to, Tammie being able to express this stuff, and it's simply short of miraculous that she has a relationship with her dad today.
I would say that is
somewhat, not a close one, but it's a relationship that's still in contact.
That is pretty remarkable, and it shows the character of Tammie also, right? I would say that's what it shows.
Yeah, obviously, someone to have the ability to overcome so much and to forgive. We don't have the ability to forgive. God gives us that ability to forgive.
Tammie, I have to ask this because in COVID, we've seen a lot of domestic issues rise and everything like that. And as you're following all these stories, do you then want to reach out and say, you know what, you can get, you don't have to live in that. Do you ever feel the need when you hear these stories through COVID to reach out to people and say, yeah, you can get through this, you can leave that situation?
I would love to reach so many people. Absolutely. And I know, I've been in abusive situations, not just with my dad, and I know what it feels like. But I also know what it feels like to break that cycle and to get away from them and to feel the freedom and the independence and just knowing that you were strong enough, because some people don't, they they commit suicide or, something happens to them, their partner murders them, and to be able to be strong enough to walk away from that and rebuild and regrow. It's amazing. It feels so good.
Was there ever threats of retaliation on you for telling these stories, or were you old enough to where, I can make my own decision and talk about this?
Well, when I was younger, I didn't talk about it. My mom did, try to throw guilt on me that you're tearing the family apart, but I did not tear the family apart. My dad tore the family apart. My mom tore the family apart by allowing it to happen. I was a child. I didn't know any better. I just knew that it was wrong and that I didn't want him to touch me anymore. I wanted to get away from it.
And as David said, that is miraculous that now you do see him. And that is, that's such a strong thing. And, in 2021, we're still looking for the good news out there, that there can be some good news. And I think your story of overcoming is a great news story that should be highlighted more, actually.
Thank you. And like I said, if there was somebody that I could mentor or touch and tell the story to, and just give them the hope that there is somebody out there that can help them, I would, in a minute, I would do that.
Well, then let me ask, do you have a website? Do you have Twitter? Do you have Facebook if they have any questions for you?
I don't have a website. I do have Facebook. I don't have Twitter. I'm not big on social media, but absolutely, if there was somebody that wanted to reach out to me and for any kind of guidance or some resources, I would absolutely help. I would help them. I have emails. I do a lot of work with the state here, so I do have some resources. But as far as reaching me, it's just either Facebook or email.
What's your email?
My email is DOC and my last name HAAS, so DocHaas3@gmail.com.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that email, because I also know you went to nursing school. And so doing that, what kind of role did that play? Because, being a nurse is very nurturing. It's very caring. It is a soft touch. And so going through that, was that cathartic too?
It was hard, I will say that, but it was exhilarating at the same time. I was so proud of myself for completing it. We started with over 30 kids just in my class, and only 9 of us graduated. So to be able to say you accomplished that, and I know God bless all the nurses out there. They're wonderful, and there's hundreds of them, but they all know how hard it is to get through nursing school. At the same time, raising kids and being a single mom, it was very hard, but I was determined once again, and I did it. And I'm happy. I'm happy that I did, and I'm happy that I was successful in it. It was good.
Tammie, a lot of people probably are very ashamed to talk about this, and then there's a sensitivity to it. So your words today are telling people you can share your story. You can speak out. Don't be afraid.
Absolutely. And in the beginning, it will be hard to talk about it, of course, but it gets easier. It gets, and it feels good to get it out there and to be able to talk about it and to know there's nothing wrong with them. It's not their fault that these things are happening to them. It's not anything that they did, the way they dress or the way they act. It's, that's your private stuff that nobody should be touching. And, it's just, it's hard, but talking about it does help.
Well, how do you encourage people to ask you about your story? Because I'm sure if someone sees you, oh, this is interesting, but I'm afraid to ask more questions. How do you inspire people to engage with you about this?
Just reach out to me. I am here. I am willing to talk to them, sit down with them, have coffee, whatever they need. Call me on the phone, whatever it took, if I could help somebody, just, one person at a time, if I could get out there and help them, to let them know just they're not alone.
David, and Tammie, you can answer this too, but David, as a life recovery coach, how important is the way we talk about these things in different ways. Like we talk about alcoholism differently than we talk about drug use, and then this. So how is the way we talk about this so important? Like the way we do talk. I don't know how to word anything else, but the way we talk about it, how effective should we be at it, and can we be at it, specifically with sexual assault?
Well, that's a really good question. How do we talk about it? It's a very, very tough conversation. People don't want to talk about the sexual assault. They don't want to talk about the pain they endured, like something like that. But once they start meeting other people that have gone through it, which is the similarity of recovery, that in recovery for drugs and alcohol, we recover together, right? This might be more of an individual recovery for some people, that they have to get on their own course of action and their own path. And I think that's maybe a little bit different, but eventually the connectiveness with others is truly what's going to catapult them into a new freedom and a new happiness.
Tammie, did you ever feel like people were talking to you about this the wrong way, like in a maybe shaming way or in a aloof kind of way? Like, did you ever feel like you were talked to about this in wrong ways?
No, I don't feel like anybody ever looked at me in the wrong way for this. I mean, it is a taboo subject, but people go through it. It's very real to so many people. So I don't feel like, I kept it a secret for a very, very long time because I didn't know how people would look at me. But once I was in therapy and talking about it, I learned and I knew that it wasn't something that I couldn't talk about with people. And, people wouldn't look at me like I was gross or disgusting.
And and it's also the way you carry yourself. I don't think, from what it seems like, is you're not one to say, woe is me, look at what happened. You're like, yeah, this did tragically happen, but here I am today.
That's right. I overcame it, and I am probably a very, way more powerful person than I would have been had I not gone through this. And I could have fell victim to it and used it as a crutch and became an alcoholic or a drug addict. Unfortunately, I didn't. I turned the corner and took a different path.
And here you are. And David, thanks again for introducing all of us here. This has been a really, I think, enlightening and deep conversation. So thank you for connecting all of us today.
You're certainly welcome. I think it's wonderful anytime we get stories like this out there and that people are willing to go public and talk about this. It sheds light onto many that are still suffering.
And as far as the advocacy work,
hope, right? It sheds hope.
Oh, it really does. Yeah. And as far as the advocacy goes, can people reach out to you about that as well, Tammie?
Of course. Yes. Any questions they have, I will be more than happy to answer them. Anything. There's no bad question. Any as private or as personal as they need to be. I'm good answering them. Anything.
Everybody talks about their life's work. Do you think where you're at right now is your life's work, or is there way more to go alongside the advocacy that you're doing now?
I think there's way more to go. There's so much that I want to do. I take my kids and we work at the homeless shelter and we feed the homeless. And if I could feed them all of the homeless people in the world, I would do it. My heart is sad for them. I don't know their story. I don't know their situation or why they're homeless. But it's saddening. And I'd like to help everybody.
And I will direct them to find the best way to help, to get your help, because it sounds like you've got a stake in this, and you have a stake in other people's lives too, which is great. David, Marion, and Tammie Haas, thank you so much for joining us today, and please come back as the journey continues to be updated.
Thank you so much for having us, Alex.
Thank you. Very nice to meet you.
I'm Alex Garrett, where we're always adapting, and we'll talk to you soon.